handy if possible. If you happen to have blocks, great. If you don't, then we'll just work around it. I'd like you to start in standing and come to a little bit of wall space if you have it. And if you don't, you could use the edge of a couch. You could use, you get creative and do it on the belly if you wanted to and seated. But if you can, you're gonna stand with your feet facing the wall. Okay, so I'm gonna show you this, maybe you look and then you get into it. You can do this just as simply as I'm doing it here. You can do it lying on your belly. So your right arm's gonna come to a cactus shape. Palm out to the side. It doesn't really matter what surface you're on. If you have like, a door behind you that'll close tightly, that'll work. And then you'll turn your feet to the left and lean toward the wall, but you shouldn't be touching the wall with anything but your right, let's say palm. Maybe your elbow is touching the wall, mine is not. If you're lying on your belly, you've just rolled onto your right side. And then lean in toward the wall if you can, or if you're on the belly, you might want to have your left fingers in front of you, and you could turn your ribs a little bit more to the left. And then breathe more deeply up into your right chest. So you could draw a really full inhalation. And then more patiently exhaling. Approach empty with more curiosity than you usually would if you weren't on a yoga mat and suddenly kind of maybe open to a shift in perspective. Now, if you're not already really intense here, crawl your right hand further up, further back. So the bend of your elbow will be more obtuse. And then I want you to turn your toes maybe a little bit further to the left, or again, if you're on your belly, you're just rolling onto your side, right? Your right arm is out to your right. Maybe it goes higher up the wall. Maybe it's good where it is. Take another couple of breaths. If you're not already tingly, and you might be, take another deep breath. And then let it go. Stand for a moment and just release from that, whatever just happened there. It might have been pretty intense. For me, it goes tingly, my right arm. If you go completely numb, you should stop what you're doing. A little tingly, you can breathe into it. It's not the end of the world, unless it's just not working for you, do whatever you need. Left arm to cactus, same thing, second side. So you're standing with your feet like quite close to the baseboard. For now, you can be facing the wall. And then you'll just turn your toes to the right so that your legs are standing as if like doing a side plank. You're on your feet are parallel to the baseboard, and then you're just gonna lean into it. And you've done it once already, so I'll give you less direct cueing, usually the second side. Can you take your attention to your breathing? And use your breath as an anchor to your physical body and as a way to tether your attention to something. So it's a pose, or it's a breathing practice, or there's many things that I'll give you as options over the course of the hour. Take your left arm wider, further up, further back, so the bend of the elbow is beyond 90. And then lean toward the wall. And if you're literally touching the wall, walk your feet back further, or turn them more to the right. And then breathe more. Feel left ribs, left chest more pronounced, as if you could choose to breathe into one lung more than the other. Maybe you change the angle of the elbow again and take another 2 breaths if you're not already completely pins and needles. Oh dear. Okay, you're gonna let that go. Shake or whatever and come back to your mat. You can put the strap to the side for now. You'll stand near the top of your mat. So for today, my angle is a little different. So you're not gonna have a great view you're not gonna have a view of my arms when they're overhead, but we're gonna go with it for today. You'll be fine. You won't need the view of my arms overhead. But stand at the front of what will be the head of your mat, so whatever direction you feel like facing. And then let your arms fall down by your sides and look down to your feet and just set your feet well. And I'll suggest that being heel bones behind second and third toes. It'll look different for each of you, but just think about that for yourself and see how it feels. And then lower your arms down and stand up tall, and if you're willing, close your eyes. If you don't like to close your eyes, it's fine, look down to your nose, but it's helpful in withdrawing from your sense of sight, deepening your attention to your breath for one thing, and then notice the potential teetering that's happening. You maybe feel you're rocking forward back, maybe it's left right more so. Just notice, and then see if you can pierce the mat with your heel bones, like you wanted them to root into the floorboards, and feel how the backs of your thighs might get just a little bit of engagement. So from the tip of the buttock, the sitting bone, downward, there's a sense of tension, like a hugging of the hamstrings. And then reach your arms overhead, take a really deep breath in. Palms face each other. If you can get your arms alongside your ears, take them up that way. If they don't go that high, that's fine, just reach them wherever you can get them. Palms facing it as if you had a block between your hands. Really lift your shoulders. And then notice if your heels are still grounded and if you are still participating in the work of the legs. Now bend your knees and fold. Touch your fingers down around your feet if you can. Put blocks there if you have them. Or if this is really not very accessible, step your feet really wide toward the edges of your mat. That'll usually give you more options. Now step your right toes back, tap your knee down, and then lift your arms if you can. You may put a blanket under your back knee if your knees are sensitive. You could point or tuck the toes. I'm gonna go with tucked for today. And then bend your left knee generously. Reach your arms up, same as you were doing before when you were standing. Let the shoulders shrug a little bit. And then just notice, are you the type that spills the pelvis forward and kind of sinks into it? Are you really, really tight and you're kind of way back here with your hips more over your knee? Could you find somewhere in between that feels sensible? Stretch front of the right hip. Create a little lift of your belly. And like in Tadasana, the flesh of your right buttock slightly drawing down the back of your thigh. Now land your fingers, frame your front foot, and straighten just your front leg to start, so it's a half split. Shift your hips back as far as they'll go. Fingertips is usually the way that I'll stick here. You can take or leave that. This is half split. Now re-bend your left knee, rock forward back to the lunge. If you can, lift your back knee and straighten both of your legs. And if that's too much, you stick with the last one, the back knee down. Take another breath here. Lengthen your spine up. Take a breath in. If you can, wave your spine longer forward. And then exhale, round a little more. Drop your head, soften your neck. Bend your knee, breathe in. And then ground your hands up to downward facing dog. Push your hips way back, straight elbows if you can. Shoulders are shrugging. Little bit. Don't close off your neck, but let them lift. Ground your inner hands. Spread your fingers. I like to say sensibly. So like all cues are cues, but you don't want to like work at 150%, right? Always be clear about that. Now slide into a plank pose. And then knees if you want them lower down onto your abdomen. So come right to the front of your body, sweep your toes back so they're pointed now, you're on the tops of your feet, and then pull your shoulder heads back. Your hands pretty much stay where they were, near the low ribs. Lift your chest, and think of this like you're pulling on your mat, like you wanted to drag yourself forward. Take another breath in here, and then go through bent knees, tuck the toes, push your hips up to downward facing dog. Straighten your arms if you can. Send your hips back, firm your legs. Now step your right foot to your right thumb. Touch your back knee down and lift your arms up. Back knee might need a blanket, you can fold your mat if you need to, and then play with this. Bend your right knee a lot and kind of sink in a little bit. If you're super tight, this might be, like, don't sink in too much, but this might be more your vibe. If you're less stretchy, or if you're more stretchy, you might back up a little bit, create some lift, and then really it's somewhere in between, and you kind of get to decide for yourself. For me, I'm really flexible, so sinking in is kind of my, I'll call it a trapping. It's not wrong, it's just not super helpful for me. If you're super tight, sinking in might actually be helpful. Now land your fingers, keep your left knee down if you can, straighten just your right leg so your hips go back. It's a half split position. Front leg might not straighten for you, that's fine, just move it in that direction. And then re-bend your right knee, rock forward, try straightening your back leg, and then try straightening both, or you move your back knee back down to the floor. Fingers are maybe framing your front foot if you're quite tight. Remember when I told you could step your feet wide to the edges of the mat? That could still be happening if needed. Now you'll bend your front knee, step your left foot forward, back to halfway lift. So pull your chest forward and up, come up about horizontal. And then round and fold and exhale. Do that again, inhale, lengthen. This one's optional. Empty if it's interesting, vigorously, shh, through your teeth. Shh, empty, empty as you fold. Shh, bend your knees a ton. Shh. Pause, empty. Don't breathe in as you roll up. If this is new and it freaks you out, you don't have to. If you're pregnant, don't do it for sure. When your arms go up past your heart, breathe in deeply, reach overhead. You're back where you started. Stay here, palms face in. Ground your heel bones. And feel top of the buttock slightly drawing down. You're not squeezing your butt cheeks together, be very clear, that's not the same thing I'm talking about. But just a little, like you're thrusting your pelvis just a little bit forward, let's say. You're not tucking your tailbone, but it's lengthening. Now lower your arms down, Tadasana. And now we'll move a little more swiftly. Take one breath in, arms overhead. Reach up, keep your legs working, participating. Fold as you exhale, let your knees bend. Fingers come down, frame your feet. Step your left foot back, tap your knee. Lift your chest, lift your arms, a deep breath in. And then land your fingers, straighten just your front leg. Hips back, try to empty while you're here. And then rock forward, take a deep breath in. Straighten your back leg, fill your lungs. Exhale, straighten both legs, shift your hips back and fold. Forward, breathing in. Down dog. Breathe out completely. Slide to plank pose, slow inhale. Slow lower. Resisting gravity. Point your feet. Take a back bend. I'm gonna do Cobra, same as before, belly's on the floor, pelvis on the floor, chest lifts. Go through bent knees, lift your belly, tuck your toes, straight to downward dog. Hips go way back. Take a deep breath in, downward dog. Full exhalation, keep pushing, legs strong, arms strong. Step your left foot forward, tap your knee, lift your arms. It's a big transition. And then you'll lower your fingers, straighten just your front leg, shift your hips back. Bend your front knee, inhale, lift your back knee. And then straighten both legs if that's working. Push your hips back. Bend your left knee, step forward, halfway lift. Try to empty, if possible. If it's interesting to you. Pause, empty, feel vacuum from the belly and the lungs and the ribs. When your arms go up, take an inhale. Reach overhead, fill your lungs completely. And then lower your hands and exhale. Repeat the same, pace yourself with your breath. Arms up, one deep breath in. Hinge forward, let your knees bend for now. Fingers frame the feet. Step the right foot back. This time just keep the fingers down, keep your back leg straight so you're not coming up with your arms. And then exhale, straighten the front leg, push your hips back. So we're just skipping a couple of the shapes. Rock forward, bend your knee, breathe in. Step to down dog. See if you can exhale, push your hips back. Slide to plank pose, breath in. Slow lower, if possible, on breath out. You might not be able to pace yourself in this way. It might be new to you, this breathwork stuff. Inhale, lift your chest, back bend. Through your knees, tuck your toes, downward facing dog. Inhale, right foot forward, come to your fingers, but don't lift them. Straighten your back leg. Exhale, straighten both legs, push your hips back. Bend your right knee, step forward, halfway lift. Lengthen, horizontal, empty, if it's interesting. Pause, empty, roll up to stand. When your arms go, breathe in. Fold, exhale, second side. Fingers down. Step left foot back. Just lift your chest, keep your fingers down. Straighten both legs if you can. Or again, you can always use the position from before, the back knee down. Bend your right knee, rock forward. Down dog. Exhale, empty if possible. Use your breath in to plank pose. Fill the lungs completely. Exhale, lower to the ground. A back bend, keep the hands to the arc, Cobra pose. Go through your knees, tuck your toes, downward dog. Exhale. Step left foot forward, breathing in. Straighten both legs. Breathing out. Bend your knees, step forward, halfway lift. Empty, or don't. Pause, empty, roll up to standing. When the arms go, breathe in. Join your palms, lower your arms. Breathe out. Take a moment in Tadasana. Maybe you bring the big toes together. You don't have to. If it's interesting, give it a go. If you close your eyes, now that your feet are together, if you change that, it will be a little harder to mitigate the teetering I was talking about. See if you can push your heels down. Balance between your big toe and your pinky toe. Even weight distribution, firm legs. Never clenching, not tucking the pelvis, but encouraging the backs of your thighs to hold you. You can lift your kneecaps too, spread your toes, fronts of your legs can also do the same kind of stuff. Now lift your arms overhead, take one breath in, keep your ribs drawn down, do what you were doing before, lift your shoulders strongly, and then hinge maybe over straighter legs, maybe. If that's familiar, if it's not, maybe you keep your knees bent. And then you'll come up halfway, lengthen your spine. Hands can be on the shins or stay on the floor, use blocks. And then step back to plank pose, and you'll lower halfway into Chaturanga is the name of the pose. Halfway down, maybe use your knees. And then tap your pelvis down and straighten your arms. So I'll call this like a variation of upward dog. Usually upward dog, your thighs and pelvis are lifted, technically. But I much prefer it this way these days. Take an extra breath. Well, you've been here for much longer, but just take one more breath in. Firm the buttock down toward the heels. And then tuck your chin, round a little, pull through a plank pose. So round your spine to get there, tuck your toes, and go back to down dog. So eventually that'll happen more swiftly, like the next time through. But just to take that moment to explain the difference between like a full up dog and what I'm talking about there. You can do full up dog if you want to. Very nice to do that one though. And then push your hands down, shift your hips back further, let them lift more, and then fill your lungs completely. And empty your lungs completely. A few times. If you can be still, be still. So to separate a bunch of stretches from a yoga practice, I would suggest that the main factor is some kind of mindful component, right? Usually for me in my classes, it's going to be breath work. And I think that's pretty typical of most flow classes, but there's all kinds. So if it feels okay, stick with even breath pace. When you need to veer off, veer off. Now lift your heels, look towards your hands. You'll bend your knees and step or lightly spring to the front of your mat. Feet together or hip width. Take a halfway lift, lengthen your spine toward horizontal. Fold, you might keep straighter legs. Here, your buttocks still drawing down the back of your thigh. You're not sticking your butt up in the air. Now push your feet down and come to standing, buttock, flesh down. And then join your palms and close it off. And keep standing evenly as possible. Arms up with your breath in. So we'll move through the same thing a couple times. Exhale to fold. You don't have to be in sync with me. Stick with your pace. Lengthen. Halfway, lift your chest. And then step back, take your time. Maybe use your knees to do this. Maybe you don't do this pose at all and you take cow, cat instead. Some kind of back bend. And round a little bit on your way to downward dog. Pause if you can. Steady your arms, steady your legs, steady your breathing. There's always the possibility, kind of two ways of practicing. You're really plugged in, and you're in the focal points, and you're in the breath, and you're in the pose. And then sometimes you're off in la la land, and you're kind of, not doing any of it. You've lost your participation, let's say, in the pose or the whatever it is. And that's not bad or wrong, but notice it. And zero back in. Try one more. Lift your heels, look forward. You'll step or hop. Halfway lift when you get to the top. And fold as you exhale. Hinge to stand. And join your palms, close it off. Once more. Arms up. Keep your legs strong, heavy heels. Fold as you exhale. Legs maintain a lot of that same effort, even when you're stretching. Hug the buttock in, halfway lift, inhale. And then step or hop or skip it. Chaturanga, halfway down. Take any back bend that you like, could be Cobra from earlier. And then go to down dog. If you're feeling strong, pause, breathe smoothly. If you're tired, take rest. But can you more diligently participate in your own experience? As many things might be pulling your awareness elsewhere. Notice it. Move on. Next pose, next breath. Lift your heels, look forward. You'll step or hop, front of the mat. Take halfway lift when you get there. And then fold it round. Straight legs or not, it's always up to you. Push your feet down, come up to standing. And then join your palms and close it off. Okay, bend your knees, chair pose. Just a breath in, sit low, take your inhalation really full. Fold forward as you exhale. Lengthen your spine, halfway up. Step back, take the Chaturanga, lower halfway, or don't. You can meet us in downward dog if you don't need to do Chaturanga up dog. Go back to downward facing. Step right foot toward right thumb. You might not be able to get all the way there. Look here, if you want to step halfway forward, grab your own ankle, step it the rest of the way. And then turn your back heel down. But I'm going to suggest that you widen your back foot. Like mine's almost at the edge of my mat. And then I'll come up into warrior one. Might be different from what you're used to, considering that your foot's so wide. Now straighten your front leg. Take your hands to your pelvis for a sec. Now you couldn't possibly tuck your tailbone under, but lengthen your tailbone down and firm your back heel. Heavy, back leg will get firm. And then do bend your right knee, but keep working your back leg. Like more than you're concerned about the depth of the bend of your front knee. Ground your back heel. And that same work that we talked about from Tadasana, which is the standing pose. Your left hip is turning toward the front of your mat. It won't be square. You'll hear that a lot, just to throw it out there, often. Your hips are not gonna square, they're not supposed to. Okay, you'll lower your hands, step back, You can take Chaturanga up dog, you could take cow cat, or you could just go to downward facing dog. Breath in usually to back bend. And then downward facing, your left foot steps forward, grab the ankle if you need. Drop the back foot wide. The back heel is on a sharp diagonal. Now once you get here, just straighten the front leg for a sec. Hands to your pelvis. You won't be able to tuck under, but just make sure that you're not spilling your pelvis forward and kind of sticking your butt back. Firm your right thigh, right heel, and then bend your left knee and then take your arms up. Right hip wraps forward, it's not square. Keep lifting the shoulders. So it's like down dog arms, just your palms are facing each other. And then yes, deepen your left knee, but ground your back heel. Okay, you're gonna lower your hands down, you're gonna step back. You can take lowering halfway down, or you can skip that. A back bend, breathe in. Downward facing. Now if you're fatigued, you can stop there. Right foot forward, take a little rest if you need to. Same thing again if possible, warrior one. Arms up. You might just go one breath in, one breath out here. So you can lower your hands when you're ready. Step back. Take chaturanga or don't. A back bend. And then downward facing dog. Step your left foot forward, take your time. So again, you don't have to go inhale here, exhale there. You can stop in the pose and just not, move as swiftly. I'll do one more cycle. So if you're feeling well, keep going. If you're tired, take rest. Left side when you get there, or you're resting somewhere, wherever you'd like. A back bend, breathe in. Down dog. Pause if possible, take 3 or so breaths. Okay, I'm gonna step to the middle of my mat and I'm gonna turn to face the long edge of the mat. So if your camera angle is just so that doesn't work really well for you, then face whatever direction you like. I'm gonna come standing more in center with the feet joined, if possible. Now, this first shape is a little strange. You've probably never done this move before. And I just realized that my camera angle is not gonna work. So I'm gonna kneel. You stay standing. Reach your right arm up. Turn your palm to your right. So like away from your body, kind of we don't do this position very much. And then flex or extend your wrist right so the palm faces up. Now take your left hand up and put your left palm on top of your right palm. And then straighten your right arm, but don't straighten your left arm. Push up with your right palm and then pull down on it with your left fingers. Reach up through your wrist, let your shoulder lift. Keep pressing down with your left palm, but go really far up with your right inner hand. Take one more breath. Again, you're just standing, I'm just kneeling because I'm a silly person and my camera angle doesn't work. Okay, you're gonna let that go. Release your arms for a sec, take a moment. And then your left arm goes up, palm away from you, so thumb forward, pinky back. Extend the wrist, I always call it flex, that's wrong. Palm to the ceiling. And then left palm on top of right palm. Push up with your left hand as if you wanted to do a handstand on the ceiling with your left arm. Really reach up and get the wrist open. But keep your right hand resisting against your left palm, and then your left shoulder lifting a little bit more if possible. So definitely shrug your left shoulder. Pull your ribs back, take another breath, even your heels heavy again. Notice what's going on with your legs. And then release your arms down completely. Now stay, if you can, take your right leg up in front of you. You're gonna find tree pose. So you can set your foot high up your thigh. You can have it's not the end of the world, it's on your knee. It can be going on your calf. Choose a position that feels okay for you. And then hands on the hips might be nice for a sec. Feel the inner right knee widening, but at the same time, the outer right thigh plugging back. So think like a bike chain, inner muscles, outer muscles of the leg. That circuit has to go in that direction, right? When one lengthens, the other tightens. And then if you can, bring your hands together. I'm taking my arms overhead with fingers bound. You could do pointers up. You could do the reverse prayer or the reverse bound finger thing, where you turn your palms toward the ceiling, kind of like a double version of that thing that you just did moments ago. Sorry, again, my arms are out of frame. This is what I'm doing with my hands. Straighten your standing leg, make it like Tadasana. Ground your heel, firm your left buttock a little. Push the right pelvis a little forward. And then let your shoulders really lift. Okay, release your arms out like warrior two, and then step into warrior two. Right foot goes to your right. I'm not mirroring you here. Left foot wiggles back until you're in a relatively long stance. And then do bend your right knee, but remember warrior one, and ground your back heel first and firm your back thigh first. Then bend your right knee if you want more. If possible, your ribs don't go this way over your front thigh. Pull them back a little. Hug your left hip in a little. You might look over your right fingers once you're settled. If you need to come out of the pose, come out of the pose and straighten your front leg. It's harder than it looks. Make your back leg more firm before you're too concerned with how deep you go into the bend of your front leg. Okay, straighten the front leg. Take a reverse triangle pose, so left hand down your back thigh. And then rebend your front knee and come, we often call this reverse warrior pose. Make your back leg straighter, inner right knee widens. Okay, and then you're gonna come back up through warrior two. Now you're gonna tilt your torso over your right thigh like I told you not to in warrior two, and then put your elbow against your inner knee. This is kind of a great first way to go. Left arm up alongside the ear or to the ceiling if that's too much. You might then put your hand on your ankle with your right hand. You can put it on a block. Try to firm your right buttock in and use your elbow, send your inner right knee forward away from your groin. So it's that same bike chain thing from tree pose. All of these postures that you've just done really have the same things happening mechanically in the legs. Now lower your left hand, widen your right foot right to the edge of your mat. Keep your back foot like it is, and then try to straighten your right leg. So it's like a weird version of pyramid pose. You did pyramid pose earlier, your back heel was lifted, this time it's grounded. And then if you can, flex your right foot. I'm just gonna move my hand so you can see. Flex your right foot so you're up on the heel base, and then turn the foot to the left. It won't come to the floor, just angle it inward. And then stick your butt a little out to the right and walk your fingers further toward the front of your mat if you can. So it's like pyramid pose, but you like tried to turn to a straddle and you kind of got lost and stuck here. Inner right leg is lengthening more than anything else. Take another breath if you're okay. Okay, you're gonna rebend your right knee and then turn everything to the side and come to a straddle if you can. So your fingers will be underneath your shoulders and right out in front of you, probably near the edge of your mat. If this is a tight position for you, you could get your blocks, put them under your hands, or you could just bend your knees and make it more like a squat. If you can, lengthen your spine. And then put your hands up in your hip creases. You'll hold your hips with your fingers. Press your heels down firmly, firm your buttock slightly down, and then lengthen up to stand. Come all the way up tall. Take a breath here. And then a little awkward, bend your knees, jump your feet together. And then lift your left leg. Catch your inner ankle, set your foot on your upper inner thigh if you can. Any variation you did with your arms last time. So again, foot, calf, ankle, like the toes could be on the floor if you want them to be. Bound fingers, I'm gonna do the reverse down fingers to open the palms, open the wrists, and then take the arms up. Do anything you want with your arms. Ground your right heel, firm your right buttock slightly. And then just notice, right, like when you get into a one-legged balance pose, that's when it starts to make sense why I was telling you all of this when you were standing on 2 legs, right? Back then it might have been like, well, why are you telling me what to do with my buttocks? And totally, I don't know, sometimes, but it is very helpful a lot of the time. Firm your inner left thigh open and your outer left hip in. Okay. You'll release your arms like Warrior 2 arms, and you'll step your left foot out and wiggle longer into a Warrior 2. That feels appropriate for you. The back foot of Warrior 2, I don't know if I mentioned this on the first set, I like it tilted a bit forward, so it's not actually sideways, same as the pelvis, not actually sideways. And then bend your left knee as much as you like, but ground your back foot and straighten your back leg. So your right buttock is quite firm here. It keeps you from just collapsing over your left leg. And then maybe you can get a little more bend in your left knee, maybe not. Take another full breath here. Empty, empty. And then you'll straighten your front leg, reverse triangle pose, which is really just a made up pose, but it feels good. Right hand on the back leg, left leg still straight, and then re-bend your left knee and come into reverse warrior. And then come up through Warrior 2. Now do the tilted pelvis, tilted torso to the diagonal over your left leg, and then bend your knee, elbow to inner knee, hand to ankle, find a block. Right arm can go straight up, or it can go alongside of your ear. Maybe your left knee bends deeper. But remember tree pose. Inner left knee sliding forward towards your left big toe. And then outer left knee toward left buttock hugging back and under you. Back and in. Right arm, right leg longer, straighter if possible. Okay, you're gonna look down. You're gonna widen your left foot to the edge of the mat. Leave your back heel down, straighten your left leg. So you're in a very wide, differently angled pyramid pose. Your back foot's flat. I'm gonna move my fingers so you can see this better, but flex your left foot, come to the heel base if you can, and then knock the toes inward toward your right. They don't come to the floor, they just turn in, and then stick your left buttock out to the left. So you'll feel a much more direct length along your inner hamstrings, inner thigh muscles. And then maybe you crawl your fingers further forward toward the front of your mat and round your spine or drop your heart a little bit more. Take another breath if you're okay there. Okay. Now, re-bend your left knee, turn the toes back where they would, let's say, normally go, and then turn to the side and come back to the straddle. Feet parallel if possible, fingers under shoulders. Take an inhale here, lengthen your spine. And then hands up into your hips, bend your knees if you need to. You're in like a wide halfway lift. Buttock firms down, help yourself up to standing. And this time just tee your arms, turn your right toes out, Warrior 2. Deeply bend your right knee, empty, empty, empty. As you inhale, go up, front leg straight, arms rise. Twice more, exhale, bend your right knee. Long arms, back leg straight again. Come out of the pose, breathing in. And then bend the knee and breathe out. Reverse warrior, inhale. Side angle, elbow to the knee, left arm sweeping overhead. So just revisiting some stuff we've done already. Lower your hands down, wide lunge. This time follow the ball of your back foot and lengthen your spine up as you put your back knee down, so more of a back bend. And then straighten both of your legs, wide pyramid. Exhale. Twice more. Bend your knees, rock forward. Exhale, straighten your legs and shift back. Last time. Now, bend your right knee deeply. You're gonna step your left foot wide toward the left edge of your mat and squat low. So you're in a variation of yogic squat, feet are wide, elbows inside the knees, hands come together, really lift your chest. And then touch your fingers down again, lift your hips and parallel your wide feet.
Now put a little bend in your knees, put your hands just above your knees on your thighs. Take an inhale as you lift up, it's like a weird chair variation. And then get as empty as possible if this is interesting to you. Shh. Let your elbows bend, let your spine round, keep your knees bent. Shh. Empty, empty, empty. Shh. It takes a while to actually get empty. Shh. If it's interesting, pause, empty, straighten your arms, lift your back ribs, widen them. It should feel more like suction than it did earlier. Like deeper, more vacuum. When you're ready, breathe in, stand your arms overhead, ground your feet firm, and then stand into your left foot. I'm just gonna turn to face you for this. Lift your right leg up in front of you. Catch the front of your, I'm gonna say shin with your right fingers. Take your left arm left and your right leg right. So it's very similar to tree pose. Your right foot is not against your leg, but same business. Inner right knee widening, outer right hip hugging, standing leg hip hugging. And you move your right pelvis more forward. And it's that same stuff you've been doing in other shapes. Okay, now I'm gonna turn away again to face differently. You're gonna come to center, take your left hand outside of your right thigh, and then twist your right arm, straight back. Ribs in, press against the hand with your right thigh if you can. Stand your left leg more like Tadasana, and then reach your right arm straight back. Turn your ribs. Keep the standing leg really strong. And even here, the right outer buttock is hugging in. Okay, now you're an untwist. Now I turned all around to get back to see you in a different way. So you're maybe still facing that same short edge. Put your feet back wide. Take your arms up, a deep breath in. And then fold over your legs, bend your knees. Listen carefully. Step your left foot back and tap your left knee down. Listen more carefully. Ground your left palm. Grab your right knee with your own right fingers and see if you can take the leg up in the air, kind of above / behind you. And you're gonna angle your left foot to the left a little so it is more behind you directly. And then like you just did in standing, peel your inner right knee open toward the ceiling and wrap your outer right buttock down and in towards your right seat. And then stretch the inner right leg. You could straighten your back leg if you really want to. Might be a lot. Okay, look down, come to center plank pose or downward dog. Take a vinyasa or don't. Okay, you'll step your right foot forward and turn to the straddle. So parallel feet facing the long side of your mat, fingers under shoulders. Take a breath in and lengthen. Put your hands up in your hip creases, bend your knees or don't. Come up to standing, hinge. To your arms, turn your left toes out, bend your left knee. Warrior 2 till you're empty if you can. And then inhale, go up. Front leg straight, arms rise. Exhale, warrior 2. Passing through the shapes, not rushing through them. One more time. Or, trying not to rush. You'll get ahead of yourself regularly, probably. And then inhale, reverse warrior. And side angle pose, whatever variation you've been liking. I love the hand to ankle. And then lower your right hand under the ball of your back foot and drop your back knee. Widen your left foot to the edge. And then straighten both legs, just another variation of pyramid pose. Bend your left knee, tap your back knee, lift your chest. Straighten both legs as you exhale. Once more. Okay, you're gonna rebend your left knee, step your right foot wide and squat low. Elbows inside the knees, hands together, really lift the chest. And then put the fingers down, lift your hips, parallel your wide feet. Folding, come up halfway, lengthen. Empty, maybe, hands up on the thighs. Round spine, bent elbows. Pause, empty if you can, straighten your arms. Breathe in when you need to. Rise up. Stand into your right foot, lift your left knee in front of you, catch the shin with your left fingers. Right hand might go to the hip. It might go out to the right as you open your left leg to the left, so I'm not gonna turn all over the place this time.
Left knee opens, left buttock presses down and forward. Standing leg, same business, down and a little in. Broaden the chest. Try not to lean back. Okay, now draw your left knee to center, cross your right hand outside your left knee, and then twist. Left arm goes straight back. Press into your right hand with your left thigh. Reach with your left arm straight backwards. Stand your right leg more in Tadasana. Heavy heel, firm right buttock. Lift your skull. Don't start to drop your head. If you notice you're looking down, your head will go with you. It's not wrong, it's just not super helpful. Take another breath. Okay, you'll unwind. Feet can go wide again, arms reach up. Just take a breath in. And then fold forward, bend your knees. You're gonna step your right foot back. Drop your knee. Angle your shin if you like. Grab your left shin with your left fingers. Open the leg toward the side. So the inner knee goes toward the ceiling. The outer hip hugs in a little bit. Push into your hand, push into your shin. Don't get confused. I turned around just for the sake of the visual, but. Okay. And then you'll step your left foot back and you'll come to a down dog, or you can take a vinyasa, or whatever you would like. Okay, you're gonna step your feet again wide and come back to the squat variation you were doing. Elbows inside the knees, hands together, lift the chest. Now if you need blocks under your hips, you can sit on blocks. Might be two of them that'd be helpful. You can stay here, or if it's interesting to play with an arm balance, you're gonna duck your head and shoulders and let your elbows slide down as if toward your ankles, and then widen your elbows and stick your knees right on your upper arms as much as you can. And then put your palms on the floor in front of you. I usually keep them pretty wide. Turn the fingers out a little, it's usually easier for your wrists. And then look forward, don't look down. Look forward and come toward your tiptoes. One foot might float, the other one may follow, it may not. If this is new, maybe not. But then push into your palms. Shoulder blades are spread wide, arms are really strong. And just maybe teeter on the one toe and see how it feels to put more weight in your hands. You might not actually be able to float. When you're ready, you can land. If you did grab a strap, bring it close by, put it somewhere around your side body, like right outside your hip, and then come down towards your bum. If you have blocks, I'll show you an option with a supported bridge, but I won't rely on it because you probably don't have blocks. So you'll bring your hips close to your heels and then lie on your back. Once you're lying on your back, if possible, just listen instead of looking, like craning your neck to see what I'm doing. It's pretty simple. Feet underneath of your knees. You're gonna reach and literally clasp the edges of your mat with your fingers. So just let your arms be long by your hips. Grip the side edges of your mat, literally. Grab hold tightly. Think of like you wanted to rip it in two, but that's hyperbole, so don't get too excited. And then push your feet down, lift your hips up, and wiggle your arm bones in so that your shoulder blades draw together, your spine lifts a little bit, and it's not getting crushed, like your spine bones are not pushing into the floor, but your shoulders are instead. And then push your feet down and use your legs. It's that same thing from Tadasana. Buttock, flesh, down the back of the thigh, glutes, hamstrings, very on. And then push your head down and lift your chin away from your chest and take a couple breaths. Okay, and then roll down, pelvis down, set your feet wide, knock your knees together. You can rest your hands on your belly or at your sides or really whatever you like. Okay, now that might be where some of you stay. If you don't want more active back bending work, but you might want a supported one, the block or a couple of books could go under the back of your pelvis. We're talking like bum crack, not lower back. Okay, back of pelvis, sacrum, if you know what your sacrum is. And then one leg or both legs lengthen. It's a very relaxed back bend. It'll feel really nice for the front of your hips.
If that's not the case, if your low back freaks out, get out of it. I'm gonna move to wheel pose. So if you're coming with me, get rid of the block if you put it there. Feet underneath your knees. Your hands are gonna set up by the sides of your skull. So on either side of your mat, you're gonna turn your fingers out slightly, hug your elbows in slightly, and then push your hands and feet down, lift your hips first. You might need to come onto the crown of your head and just take a second. You might not be able to get off the crown of your head, by the way. Don't turn it if you can avoid it. Don't put too much pressure on your neck. And then lift your head if you can, try to straighten your arms. Now, if you have not done this since you were 15, it's very different later in life. Push your feet into the floor strongly. It's the same Tadasana legs, buttock firm, slightly down. And then push your hands more into the floor and lengthen legs and arms as much as it feels good. When you're ready, bend your elbows, tuck your chin, try to land the space between your shoulders. Set your feet wide again, knock your knees together. Rest. Especially if you're in wheel pose, take a few breaths to come down. And just feel a couple slower breaths. Try to calm your nervous system. Back bending is really as far away from comfort zone for most people as it gets. It's very vulnerable energetically. My heart's racing after that. So just notice what's going on, slow your breath down, a couple full cycles. Okay, and then tip your knees side to side a couple times. Sway your shins, like windshield wiper kind of thing. Okay, and then you'll let your knees come more towards center. And if possible, grab your strap if you grab one. If you don't have it, I will give you an option. If you have a loop, put your right foot in the loop, take your right leg to the ceiling. If you don't have a strap, interlace your fingers behind the hamstrings of your right leg. So more middle of upper leg, not near the back of the knee, but more in the belly of the muscle. And then if you do have a strap, hold it with your right hand for a sec. Lengthen your left leg along the floor. If this is intense for you, keep your left foot flat and just don't lengthen it. If it's possible, push up with your right foot into the strap. Keep the left hand on the strap. I'm gonna hold my fingers hooked in the loop. If you don't have one, just do whatever you have. And then put your right palm against the crease of your head. Make like a lobster claw of your right hand, like thumb on one side, fingers all on the other. And then hook your thumb around the top of your right thigh and pull the flesh of your right outer hip down and in. We talked about that all class. Now it's just like a manual adjustment for yourself. And then just notice what happens, right? When you root the thigh bone by pushing your hand into it like that, what's the difference? What does it feel like? Why might I suggest that versus letting it do whatever? Press your left leg straight if it's long, right heel toward the ceiling. Take another full breath like this. You can cross your right leg a little to the left if that's possible, if it's interesting for you. Keep the lobster claw if that's helpful or interesting. So you're still pulling the flesh of your right buttock down and also drawing the foot maybe a little closer to your torso. Should feel kind of like it might be really intense, but it might also be like, oh yeah, I probably needed to do this. Or maybe that's a big sell, I don't know. Now, come back to center. You're just gonna switch legs. So put your left foot up in the belt, set your right foot flat for now. Hold with both hands if you like. Or again, you might be interlacing your fingers behind the hamstrings, middle, upper leg. And then lengthen your right leg along the floor if you did the first time successfully. If it didn't work that well, just don't. Make both legs straight if it's possible. Hold the belt in your right hand, maybe fingers in the loop, and then lobster claw your left hand. Hook your claw around your left thigh bone, the root, the crease of the hip, and then take the skin, the flesh of the outer hip, and roll it
away from the belly and down toward the left, like sitting bone or outer hip. And then keep tugging with your right hand on the belt just to give tension, not to like yank it any closer to you really. Breathe more. Again, your long leg, like your floor leg, could be bent. If this is really intense, you should bend it. Now cross your left leg just a little over center. Use your lobster claw to push the root of the thigh. It's even more interesting here than it was when the leg was vertical. As far as the implications of what you're doing, should feel pretty obvious. You'd probably say you feel it along your IT band. Settle the skin of the left hip using your lobster claw or whatever. Keep tugging on the left foot with your right fingers. Take another deep breath. Okay. And then you'll center your left leg. You'll just put your feet flat on the floor for a sec. Let your knees be bent, or you could hug them into your belly, or you could redo the windshield wiper situation. If possible, come up toward a sitting position. I'm going to turn to face you for this. You won't need the strap. If you have a block or two, you might use a block. You don't need, but if you're really tight, sitting like this might not even be accessible. So you could lift your bum up onto a surface like a block or a folded blanket or a towel or a couch cushion. You could also just do it with bent knees, and that'll, you'll still do the same idea. If you can, you'll fold your right heel in. So think tree pose again. Right knee deeply bent, right heel on the right side of your groin if possible. So the fold is really as deep a bend in the knee as you can manage. And then turn your body toward your straight leg. So I'm taking my fingers and framing my left leg. I'm not mirroring you, by the way. Turn your ribs to your left, and then crawl your hands forward and start to forward fold if you can. So right thigh stays pressed open, inner knee wider, outer knee heavier. You could take your right hand and hold on to your foot, or you could use your strap around it if you wanted to. Left hand might even cross over and do like a double hold, both hands to the foot. And then if that's happening, your arms are crossed such that your forehead might be nicely cradled by your biceps. And then try to let your head drop. Keep your right buttock heavy and turn your ribs towards your left. And fill your right rib cage, right lung, as much as you can. You can exhale however you want. See if you could really focus your inhalation. Come back upright. Straighten the right leg. Straddle, and then bend the left knee. Heel to groin. Thighs are wide open for this one. Left knee bent as much as it'll go. You could do this with your left leg straight. I should have mentioned that on the first side, I apologize. But turn toward your long leg. Lengthen upward first. So it's a twist before it's anything else. And then it's a forward bend. So crawl your hands forward any amount along your shin, along your leg. Catch your foot or use a strap. And bend the right knee if it's too hard to get, your hand around your hamstrings. Maybe your head falls against your biceps. Ground your left buttock if you can. Turn your ribs to the right. Come back up. Straighten the bent leg if you can. I'll give you two options here. The first is a more accessible option. The second is less. The second is actually to stay where you are. But if you prefer, probably some of you will prefer this, I like to wrap the arms under the backs of my knees. More often than not, I would use a block or usually a blanket. I just don't happen to have it right beside me. But arms wrapped around the backs of the knees, arms rest on top of another prop, maybe not. They're just on the floor if you want. Your knees will stay bent, and you'll make this about rounding your spine and breathing more into the back body. If it's interesting to do straddle, keep your legs wide. I like to put blocks out in front so they will catch my torso. That requires that you have quite a lot of mobility in your pelvis and the way that your thigh bones move. So, no amount of stretching is going to get you there. If your skeleton is just so, then your skeleton is just so. So if you didn't know that, it's not, you can't just stretch your way into a really, really deep pancake position. People often call this pancake, like in fitness or whatever. If possible, the belly block holds the abdomen, and then the second block I'll usually put my hands on top of and my forehead on my hands. Now you can start with flexed feet and active legs, heavy heels, grounded buttocks. Eventually I'll suggest that you let that go and you kind of collapse your inner legs. Your inner feet will flop toward the ground, and you'll be much more passive. Now in either of these positions, try to take your breath into the back of your ribcage. Try to allow your body to be heavy. I'm just going to change the music, I'm not abandoning you. If there is a way for you to rest your head on a surface like a block, do that. If you've never worked with this resonance breathing track before, 2 notes that are happening right now. The inhale is the high note that's coming right here. And the exhale is the low note, which is a little bit longer. And then if you're okay in the position that you're in, do that a few times. Breathe in with the high note. Breathe out with the low note. And let this be the last focal point. For people with a busy mind, which I firmly believe is most people, and just not everybody likes to talk about it, but I digress. For people with a busy mind, breath work is the most tangible meditation in my experience. The movement attached through the active parts of practice can be really exciting for various reasons. But it is breath work, in my experience, that sets a yoga practice aside from, other types of movement. So breath helps you to take up more space, quite literally, in your body. Like feel your inhalation expand completely, more than you ever do if you're, not encouraged to do so. And in this practicing of taking up space, hopefully we can take that beyond just poses and not shrink to the world around us, as so often is the outcome of all of the fuckery that is the current world around us. If you are good in the shape that you're in, stay there. If you have to go, I don't know if I told you that this class was beyond an hour, but usually I go 70 or 75. So I'll hold space another few minutes. If you have the time, I highly recommend resting. I'll give you some direction as we get into it. So you can lie on your back, you could sit instead of lying on your back, you could do legs up on your couch or legs up on the wall. I've got blocks under the backs of my knees, which gives me bend in the knees and softness in the lower back, more so than if the legs were straight. You might tuck your shoulders in a little bit. Get into a shape that will serve you, meaning like will be comfortable for a bit. And then you can stick with the breathing music thing, or you can just drift. The active practice is like an organizational system. So it helps us to look at the body, to take the body part by part and to, assess its workings. The breath work helps to, my teacher likes to say, contact consciousness, a deeper layer of consciousness. But Shavasana is equally important in, I like to say, convincing our body that rest is also productive. Right? That lying around is potentially as important as mindfulness and meditation. That maybe lying around is meditation.
If you can, remain heavy. Over time, the breath will kind of naturally get softer and shallower. Let that happen, unless you need to bring your focus to something. I've left you a few minutes. Rest heavy where possible. If you feel ready, deepen your breath. Move your tongue, move your jaw, nod your head. If you're not ready to move, stay where you are and just ignore me, or mute this so that you're not disrupted further. If you're ready to move, wiggle your fingers, nod your head, move your tongue. Take your time to find a seat. Crossed legs or folded shins or really whatever you like. Leave your hands on your thighs. If there's a way that you like to join them at your chest, then you can certainly do that. Draw your skull back slightly, and if you would humor me, don't pull your shoulders back. Let your shoulders drop. It's fine. They're supposed to be like that. Draw your skull back. Let your skull be right over top of your center, and just feel, maybe after some movement, some breath work, some whatever, there's a sense of
more easeful movement of breath and potentially a taller spine. Acknowledge your efforts with as little judgment and labels as possible. Observe what shows up. Stick by yourself regardless of what shows up. And continue. Thank you. If you have any questions, stick around for a minute. Happy Tuesday. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Jordan. How you doing, Michael? Good. That's okay, yeah, for sure. It's a lot of lefts and rights. All right. Gets better. All right. Good night, everyone. Virabhadrasana, bridge, Matsyendrasana. At that, I should get figure 4.